Do you have a vegetarian PDF?
Oh, it's just a cookbook.
Wait, are you a vegetarian?
No, but I like to try to avoid meat. All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome back, guys. It's a double welcome back because obviously we have the quarantine, which I guess we're kind of used to. I mean, it's really crazy if you think that we only had two so far this whole year. And it doesn't, well, I should truly not say this, but it doesn't seem like we will have another one because all the teachers.
We're having one this week.
Yeah, I know, right? All the teachers the day before that quarantine started had gotten either their second shot or the Johnson & Johnson, like pretty much all the upper school. But there's this annoying 2-week rule where it doesn't like you're not officially vaccinated until 2 weeks after your second shot or after the J&J. So that's where like now none of the teachers I don't think will have to quarantine. So individual classes it might come up like, oh, Danny, unfortunately, like was next to somebody who had it. It wouldn't be Danny. But then, like, this class would have to quarantine, but the teachers wouldn't. Anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about that. It was bad timing because it was the anniversary of the first quarantine. It was almost like we were fated to not be in the building for that part of March. I don't know what it was. And I had an off day the last day. I was, like, trying to introduce the Ides of March. And even I was having an off day because I was just getting over my second shot, which ended up being worthless. It's worthwhile now.
I still
But
can't believe you jinxed it.
I know I jinxed it really hard. I promise. Next year when it's March, I won't talk about the Ides of March until like we're in the building for like the 15th or 16th. It wasn't even gonna be the 15th.
First Ides of March got
But
canceled. So
right, I had one.
do it again.
All right. But anyway, guys, let's get into it. I know it probably feels weird to get into. I'm always like, shh, guys, stop talking over me. I'm always rusty when we come back from a break, so go easy on me, and I'll try to go easy on y'all, so we can just ease back into this. I'm gonna come back to this actually. This is something I was gonna talk about right before quarantine. But there's some kids who have gotten too carried away with like, oh, I can use cell phones in Mr. Calamello's class because he doesn't like stopping the class to get it from me. Well, I'm not sure, but this almost seems like the worst thing that could happen. I'll just email your parents. I won't even let you know that I saw you with it. I'll just email your parents between classes or during essay. So that's not even me trying to be like what's the most clever way I can be really mean. But it feels like a good deterrent. I don't know if anybody in here has this problem. This is more of like one of my ninth grade classes. Carson?
Did you bring this up in a video?
I did, but it didn't seem effective at the time.
So, in the next, why did you make that watch your videos assignment a million points? You know that's going on a grade book, right?
It doesn't link to Power School. That actually does. On Teams, it might say, "Oh, you got a million points or whatever." Those are special Latin points. They're a little different. I don't know. Miss Fisher, stop talking, please. All right, so guys, the remaining weeks are very small in number. We have like technically 8, but it's not actually functionally 8. I need to verify something, but I know for sure that this third week is CMAS. Okay, so we're gonna take CMAS, which is good because y'all always do, or y'all did good on CMAS the years we took it. Which was it just the first one? Just the first one. But we'll finally take it again so our school can look really impressive because it's like, oh, look, our students are doing really good on the CMAS. But anyway, that's in 2 weeks. So this week is, the end of March, beginning of April. We're going to finish chapter 15. Y'all did really good on the numbers. I still have to upload those quiz grades. But y'all are doing good on the numbers, so we just need to finish that up. And we'll start 16. We'll finish chapter 16, which is easy. Next week, that's third declension adjectives. So they're just giving us adjectives in the third declension, big whoop, not a huge deal. And then y'all have a CMAS week. I don't think I teach y'all at all that week. I could be wrong, actually, so this could be a little off. But then we do 17 at the end of the month. I love chapter 17, all these things called relative clauses. We'll start 18, which is like probably y'all's last chapter, kind of, and that is the passive voice. And then the reason I don't have anything in this middle week for May is because I could be wrong, but I think I'll take the NWEA a second time then. Wait, Carson, do you happen to know?
For one, I thought the CMAS was opt-in, not opt-out. So you literally have to fill out this form saying, I am going to take the test, and it's only going to be like a to. I think only 6 people did.
So 6 people opted out.
No, 6 people opted in.
Oh, so
And
almost no one's taking it.
Apparently, what the district is doing, we're doing an opt-in phase, which means
I
if
thought
you want to take the test, you have to opt into it. It's not an.
And I thought I heard that most of y'all were opting in.
No, you know what?
That was 6. My mom said 6 tests had to be
Weird. I thought it was everybody. I want y'all to take the CMAS actually. I think it looks good for the school. Whatever. You should
it's
opt
not
in.
gonna count for funding.
It doesn't count for funding, then maybe it doesn't matter. Kylie? Oh, I'm not aware of that at all. I don't know. To be honest, guys, I don't. Let's have Miss Fisher move behind David right now, okay? As a kind of welcome back to LTA celebration. So you need to stop, and we need Caden's area to calm down as well. But guys, I'll adjust this. I'll find out. I don't totally know, so I'll look into it. I thought the whole week was blocked out for CMAS, but I guess maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, then that means we'll be able to get up to chapter 19.
Is the last weekend of school?
We'll be able to do chapter 19. Yeah, this week is finals week. There is a blue week, the first week of June on the calendar, but I've had it verified those are just like extra days. So as far as I know, and now I feel really insecure about my knowledge of the calendar, this is the last week, and so we would take finals week. It'd be it's like technically 8 weeks, but with CMAS and maybe NWVA, it's more like 6 or 7. So I'll find out if it's 6 or if it's 7. I'm not totally sure. It's a little confusing now that I think about it. I thought we had a meeting on Friday, and I could have swore they were like, everyone's opting in to take the CMAS. Yay. But now Carson's saying y'all are opting out.
Yeah.
Which I guess if it doesn't affect funding, why should you take it? I thought taking it was something that, like, if you did good, it made the school look good, got us more money. But if that's not the case, then forget
You
about it.
just want a raise.
No, I just want the school to have money.
If the school has money,
You want to have the school have money and a raise.
Yeah, why not? Sure. We gotta give the school more money so they can like quickly build this parking lot thing. All right, guys, y'all don't forget on numbers. We'll get to some Latin at the end, but we're gonna have a little bit of a Myth Monday. So please share your thoughts on the guy we're gonna talk about right now. It's not so much reception based. It's more like just the myth itself. We could talk about reception. Maybe next week I'll do like a reception update on this person. But so, okay, here are like the main Greek, like the really big, obvious Greek heroes that we have talked about. As I'm saying this, I'm like, I feel like I should still talk about Ides of March again, but it's like,
No.
yeah, we gotta move on.
No.
Gotta move on.
Stop.
So Perseus, we talked about Perseus pretty good. It was through the lens of Percy Jackson, which may or may not make sense, depending on what you know about Percy Jackson. It turns out he's not really meant necessarily to be Perseus, but his name is kind of a reference. Heracles, we probably need to revisit Heracles. Just like Perseus, I talked about Heracles mostly through the lens of like the Disney movie. Final warning for Maddie Dugan before you get moved. What's up with the Maddies? It's crazy. So we might want to talk about Heracles in terms of his actual myths a little more than we did, where we're mostly using his myths to compare or make comparisons to the Disney adaptation. Theseus. Now we're going to talk about this guy named Theseus. You probably heard him. Some of you know him really well. I don't think we talked about him last year. Huh?
Does he make theses?
No, the word thesis is another Greek word that just means like an idea or like an organizing
He's a
concept
man of ideas.
that you write a paper around.
Big brain.
Right? Miss Dugan, let's have Miss Dugan move between final warning, okay? Not joking. And Miss Fisher, you can move a lot more quickly. Anyway, I might reference Jason today, which is problematic because we haven't talked about Jason. But you might have heard about Jason the Argonauts. He's one of the least interesting heroes, honestly, if I'm totally honest. Unless you get into the nitty-gritty literary tradition. He's kind of just a guy who goes on a expedition to retrieve this magical fleece, this golden fleece. It's okay. He introduces to the Greek world this woman, Medea, who is his girlfriend. And she's like this witch who we'll talk about a little bit today. But other than that, Jason and his Argonauts are not super interesting, but we should talk about them eventually. And Atalanta, one of the only women out of all these heroes that we do need to talk about eventually. And then I think we have brought up a lot of the Trojan War people like Odysseus and Achilles. They've come up. They'll continue to come up. When I force y'all to take the National Latin exam next year, there's some questions about these things. It's not just Latin; it's a lot of mythological content. So, who is Theseus? He is an Athenian hero. He's born around Athens. And of course, well, no, he's not real. So when I talk about him being born around Athens, it's like that makes you think that there's a historical component to him. Probably not. We know some of the very early Athenian statesmen like Pericles. This guy would have been living at the end of the Bronze Age, right? Probably before the Trojan War. Not that we should try to force mythology onto a historical timeline, but the idea is that most of these heroes like Heracles and Theseus and Perseus are living like sometime in the Bronze Age, which is over 3,000 years ago. If you think of the Trojan War as happening at the end of the Bronze Age, and then we have the slow crawl towards Greece being this like intellectual superpower, and then eventually passing the torch to Rome. All of that is happening way after all of these crazy mythological things are happening, insofar as they happen at all, because it's mythology. But anyway, pretty much everybody at some point early on in life learns about this Minotaur figure, and that's Theseus he's part of this Minotaur myth. But yeah, he travels to Crete, which I'll show you on a map in a little while. It's this island to the south of Greece to help out with the situation where 14 Athenians are being fed to a Minotaur every year. It's not a great look for Crete. He's also the main character of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, which is kind of cool. But we need to build up to talk about Theseus. We can't just start from the get-go. How about we break up my rambling about Theseus with some stories? Did anybody do anything like especially tight or crazy over the break?
Snowboarding. We got
Snowboarding. What was that, Ava?
My dog ate my burger.
Wait, I want to hear what Ava said. What? Pennsylvania, interesting. Who all left the state? Nice. So I went to Louisiana, where I'm from. It's cool, especially to leave the state to go to like a warmer climate. But like that's what I was saying. Like once you get back, I kind of want a whole other week to just like be at home and do nothing. Like I want both things. I want to be able to travel and to like sit in my house and do nothing for 72 hours straight, which I kind of did when I got back. But anyway, Pennsylvania is interesting. That's very far. Well, it's not that far. I used to live in Philadelphia. What?
The only exhilarating thing that happened to me was my dog ate my burger, and now I want to eat my dog because that was the last burger.
No. Dogs probably shouldn't even have burgers.
Too easy.
Anybody else who's not been talking through class so far, Ella?
I went to go see my aunt in Kansas who just had a baby.
Nice. Cool. Right, remember the Wand Flus have a Kansas connection. I actually had a cousin who is from Kansas, moved to Denver over the break. I was not around to help. But, yeah, Kansas, it's not too far away. It's kind of right there. Kylie? What was that? Yes. All right, so before we even talk about Theseus and, like, who he is, we should talk about the Minoans who are on this island. I think I skipped way ahead to show you guys this map real quick. I should have put that in another spot. But like this is Greece, right? We have this part that's like is on the southern edge called the Peloponnese. But then the mainland is right here between Italy and Turkey. And this is Crete right here, this island to the north of Africa, between Africa and Greece. Carthage is over here, Italy's over here, Egypt is right here. But in the middle of the Mediterranean, between the Aegean and the Ionian, we have Greece and we have Crete. Okay, some of the very earliest Bronze Age civilizations in the Mediterranean were centered around that southern part of Greece and Crete specifically. Why would a place like Crete, this little tiny island between Africa and Greece, be one of the first Bronze Age civilizations to be really advanced? Well, probably because there's a lot of people passing between the different parts of the Mediterranean and bringing like technology and trade and goods to Crete. But anyway, Crete apparently has this king, okay, and it's kind of confusing, but he might be two different guys actually, it turns out. But there's at least one, and his name is King Minos, okay, and from his name we get the term Minoans. So when we talk about the people who lived in Crete over 3,000 years ago, we use the word Minoans. Those are like some of these early Greek Bronze Age civilization people. But anyway, what's up with this King Minos guy? He's the first king of Crete, and he's the son of Zeus and Europa. Usually when you're the son of Zeus, you go on to become like a full-on hero. This guy he's not like really a hero, but he is special. He has that divine lineage. Minos might actually be the word for king in an early Bronze Age Cretan language we call Linear A. It's a language that we know so little about. It has this weird like scientific term. It's not like Cretan or like Minoan, just Linear A. It's one of these first alphabets that shows up in the Mediterranean. We have Linear B as well. The Phoenicians had Linear B, and they're like, the Phoenicians are right across the way. This is where the Phoenicians are. So Phoenicians, Cretans, these are where civilization is like really kind of popping off. If like 5,000 years ago, Egypt was doing really good. 3,000 years ago, different parts of the entire Mediterranean are doing good. But anyway, this guy, he is the first king of Crete, and apparently he had a really good navy. So Crete is known for their navy, which makes sense because they're an island surrounded by water. They better know how to like use like that kind of technology. But then Plutarch, who is a historian, he says there's two different King Minoses. There's this first one who's the first king of Crete and leads him to have this really good navy. And then there's a second one who comes later who might be his grandson, the first one's grandson. And that's the guy who has the monstrous Minotaur walking around a labyrinth eating 14 Athenians every year. What? Well, that's just like that kind of thing happens all the time when you have ancient historians trying to make heads or tails of mythology. Like Thucydides and Plutarch talk about this guy as though he's historical. They're like, yeah, this is a historical guy. I'm going to say everything I know about him right now in this part of the book I'm writing. But like they're just going off of what they've heard other people say, and they're not really acknowledging the fact that he likely might not be based on a historical figure at all. There probably at one point was a King Minos, but there probably was no Minotaur or anything like that, you know? So anyway, they're just trying to reconcile. They're like, well, is he a good king or is he an evil one who had a Minotaur? Maybe it's both. Maybe there's two different Minoses. It's just, you know, you
There's
can.
5 different ones.
Yeah, it turns out there's actually 7. But anyway.
As many as you think, I mean, like,
Anyway, the one like this I don't know if this goes with the first or the second, but say this there's 2 of them. The first one was good. His grandson is less good and has a Minotaur eating people. That guy maybe would have lived around 1500 BCE. That's like a couple hundred years before the Trojan War. Hercules is alive and doing things and saving people, but the Trojan War heroes aren't quite. Maybe they're like little babies or they're about to be born. That's kind of the timeline we're working with. King Minos, I'll talk about it in a second. I'll explain this picture where he's in the underworld. But anyway, let's say the second King Minos, the one who isn't good, his wife Pasiphae, she has a child with a Cretan bull who may or may not be Poseidon, and this is the Minotaur. And so the king is like, oh man, like my wife, she's like created this real problem. I'm gonna have to build a giant labyrinth for the Minotaur to be stuck inside of, so he doesn't. What, doesn't that make perfectly good sense, Carson?
No, I just want to know why she fell in love with the bull.
It happens, people. It happens. This is ancient Greece.
maybe one
It could have been a
person was
spell. Who really knows? But I guess the idea is you can't have this Minotaur just like walking the streets like just like being a normal person. So they have to build a labyrinth for it to be stuck inside of.
That
And
makes sense.
the idea is, I guess, like even the Minotaur itself wouldn't be able to find his way out. Not that he's trying, but it's like this way he's stuck and maybe he doesn't even know he's stuck. But they tap this inventor Daedalus to build this maze for this monster.
Daedalus Stormbow?
Daedalus here is an Athenian. Okay, but his nephew Perdix built some cool stuff and made him jealous. So Daedalus pushed him off a cliff. And then he went to Crete. Not making that up, that's real. And depending on the version, sometimes he's banished to Crete. Other times he's just like getting the heck out of Dodge because he killed his nephew because he was jealous of him. But he ends up in Crete and he helps King Minos with his ships. And then he builds this labyrinth. But he gets trapped in there along with the Minotaur and his son Icarus, who you've probably heard of. So these myths, like, if you start talking about Theseus and you're talking about King Minos, you're talking about Daedalus and Icarus, it leads to a lot of other myths. Connor?
Sounds like the Daedalus Stormbow from Terraria.
I don't know that, but I know I'm supposed to play Terraria. Guys, does anybody, I know I'm supposed to know these things, but there's so many myths, guys, it's hard to keep track. Does anybody know why he gets stuck in the labyrinth that he builds? Is it because he has to know about the Minotaur? I think it's because to build the maze, he has to know about the Minotaur. So, like, King Minos can't let him go after that. He's like, now you're stuck here, too. I can't have you walking around telling people, like, oh, you know the king has, like, a maze underground where he keeps his freakish monster son. I think that's what it is. But anyway, around this time, don't power off, King Minos has a tax against Athens. And again, depends on the version, but it might be because Athens lost a naval battle against Crete, or maybe because Athens is being protected by King Minos'
Athens had a
navy.
strong navy. I thought they were known for their strong navy.
Eventually, but this is like mythological timeline. This is not like the same Athens that'll go up against the Persians. But anyway, Athens owes Crete a tax for something. It might be because they are like a client state to Crete, and Crete kind of like owns Athens. But whatever it is, Athens has to give him 14 kids a year to be sacrificed to the Minotaur. And depending,
Why don't they just let us starve?
I guess like Pasiphae's like, she still thinks of it as her baby. She's like, that's my son. I need to be able to feed it 14 humans a year. So that's roughly, what is that, like a little less than 2.5 people a month. And so this is what's happening. And people don't know that this is, they don't know, oh, you got chosen as a sacrifice. They just know you got chosen and that you're not going to come back. They don't know the details, the nitty-gritty details of this Minotaur eating people. Aiden?
Why do they eat people? Why can't it eat like a big cow?
Again, good question. I don't know. It seems like it could probably just live off of livestock.
And I mean, like, if it's your child, then why are you leaving it in a maze? If you're leaving it in the maze and letting it eat people, it's worse than if it was dead.
What's that?
Technically, if it ate cow, we would be half what.
What's that YouTube channel? It's like Cinema Sins, where they watch a movie and they
Yeah.
all of the plot holes. I get kind of tired of people finding out plot holes in movies. That's not really interesting to me. But we get a YouTube channel where we find all the plot holes in Greek myths.
That'd be great.
But Greek myths, like by
10% of the profit.
design,
Who
these,
said
these are kind of plot holes by design. These Greek myths. All right, please raise your hand, guys. Resist the urge to talk out of turn. But anyway, I thought this was kind of interesting. Minos actually, when he dies, he ascends to become one of the judges of the dead. A lot of people think Hades does this in the underworld, but it's 3 different guys who were formerly humans who are, they're just like special, and when they die, they get to assume this role. But this is getting ahead of myself. Here's a picture of the real Bronze Age era archaeological site in Crete.
Why are they special?
Why is he? Because this guy, he was the son of Zeus. That's pretty special.
Everybody's the son of Zeus.
It
He's
does-
not special.
It seems like that sometimes. It seems like
I
that.
could be the son of Zeus. I could just say that.
All right, Connor, reel it in. All right, the Minoan civilization is important in the same way that the remnants of the Trojan civilization that were found in the 19th century and the Mycenaean civilization found in Greece are important, because as far as we can tell, these are like the Greek peoples that went the furthest in terms of advancing their civilization, when a lot of the world was not doing that at all. So by the Iron Age, and then when the Iron Age is over and we enter the historical period, you know, all over Eurasia, people are doing great, and they have civilization, they have roads, they have, what else? Basically, they have laws, they have money. But at this time, it's very rare. It's like, you can count it on maybe one hand. You have Egypt, you have different Chinese dynasties, you have the Indus River Valley people, and that's about it. So it's a big deal back in the Bronze Age to have a civilization. So I just want to, again, point that out, that the Cretans were doing something pretty special. And have y'all heard that term Cretan? When it was like, oh, you Cretan? No? Okay. That comes from this. Oh, I need to move Medea.
First writing of Pokemon, found a picture of ancient place.
There would be a Mew on some ancient ruin, though. Okay, back to Theseus, all right? That was a little digression about the place where Theseus is going to end up. But if we go back to the mainland, little Theseus is born to King Aegeus, the king of Athens. So I guess Athens technically is subservient to Crete, but one day they will go on to do great things, as we know. But Theseus is born with divine help from Poseidon, so he kind of counts as a demigod. His father leaves him when he's a kid for some complicated, not super interesting reasons. But he leaves behind like a pair of boots and a dagger that Theseus's mom gives to him when he comes of age. So Theseus journeys to go see his father, Aegeus, who has since married Medea, who is this witch woman from across the Black Sea that a guy named Jason falls in love with briefly, brings back to Greece, only for them to eventually hit the rocks in terms of their relationship. And Medea gets really mad because she thinks Jason's cheating on her. She does all this crazy, witchcraft. And she gets out of that situation only to come to Theseus's dad and marry him. But it does turn out that, unfortunately, she's evil. And so she tries to get Theseus killed because she finds out before Aegeus that Theseus is his heir. I know this is kind of complicated. It's a lot of names. But Theseus is the heir to Aegeus. Theseus goes back to Aegeus, not loudly proclaiming this, but just kind of like getting in the good graces of what turns out to be his father. Medea knows what's up though, so she's like, "Oh, you like whoever this new stranger is rolling into town, you need to go fight this bull, this Cretan bull, or no, a Marathonian rather." And Theseus is like, "Okay, cool," and he does it. He's fine, so he doesn't die like Medea wants. Then Medea tries to poison him. But just when Theseus is about to drink a glass of poisoned wine, the father recognizes the sandals he's wearing, and he knows that this is his true son. Medea flees on her dragon car to who knows where else. I don't know what happens to Medea after that. That's kind of the last you hear from Medea. But anyway, and so now Theseus is reunited with his father, and this is when they start talking about the plot that the Cretans have the Athenians following, which is, sending the 14 victims to their island every year. And Theseus is like, "Hey, send me instead. I'm going to go instead of any of these victims, and I'm going to get to the bottom of why we're sacrificing 14 people just because Crete beat us in a naval skirmish decades ago." Connor?
Why is everybody the son or God?
I don't know. It does sometimes seem like that, though.
It's way too repetitive. Nobody's special anymore.
But even Theseus isn't, like, technically.
Everybody
Hey.
just
I think they would use their, what's it called? They use their team.
Oh, it is their team.
Yeah,
Okay,
which is weird. But yeah, as far as I know, it's like the same login and
so
password.
like that whole email?
I think so.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
How can he beat a bull with a dagger? He's not immortal.
Maybe he had another weapon with him when it happened. Aiden?
Yeah,
Yeah, more than daggers. Yeah, magic.
Well, okay, like say you missed a whole decade of your kid growing up. They might look totally different, but the sandals look the same.
Wait.
What?
Somebody put her on trial because I heard that she turned something into a salamander.
Oh,
But he's
Medea?
fine now. He's fine.
Medea's done a lot of stuff. Miss Fisher, if you don't move right up here, I will bring a detention form to you during essay. I promise you. I promise. All right, guys. Sorry, I feel like I'm doing a kind of bad job of this, but like if you look into it, for like why Theseus's dad leaves him as a child, they're not like very interesting. I need to write a version of this myth myself because there's like a couple of actual plot holes, not just like how could this happen when that happens. It's more just like what happens here? Why does Theseus get separated from his dad? Why the boots? Like all this like weird stuff that is it doesn't make for a good like if you can picture Disney adapting this, they would need to embellish some of these things a little bit. Ella?
I know why he has his sandals and why he recognized them.
What? Yeah.
When he was born, I don't remember why his dad like left him and his wife, but he had a giant boulder with the shoes under it, and he said that when Theseus could move the boulder and get the shoes, he could come home.
Okay. Cool. So interesting. So yeah, like because it doesn't sound like the dad and the mom have this like they don't like break up. It's not like oh you're gonna raise him. I need to go be the king of Athens like away from y'all. So who knows? But yeah, I like that idea that he's like it's like a test. It's like when the boy is of age, you can tell him about this rock that happens to have sandals under them, and when he can get the sandals out from under them, then he's ready to come find me. Because that does make for a good story when like one has to go confront their father figure, like Hercules does in the Disney movie. But it's just like we need a better why. But we'll workshop it. Huh?
Well, there's plot holes in almost every Disney movie nowadays. I can realize.
That's true. I guess Disney movies have them too. But like
Disney
that,
movies have a bunch of plot.
that's one thing a Disney movie would make sure to like explain it can even be just like a flashback like narration thing. Like, but the father had to leave the woman because she was from a different part of Greece, or I don't know, something.
I mean, Disney stories are getting more boring as they come along. Because they go with the same formula every time. Somebody dies because they just die. They don't explain why they die. They just like they die because they die.
Well, it's like one of the parents always dies in a Disney movie, and it's usually always good.
Thank you.
Let's have Miss Dugan move in front of Kaden right now, or else you will have a detention for her. Okay, guys. So anyway, so Theseus gets on a ship. We're gonna read about we're gonna do a translation of the story. So some of the details I'll just let be kind of vague because we'll get to the actual story version of it. But Theseus goes to Crete to get to the bottom of what's going on with the Marathonian bull. He gets trapped in the labyrinth, but not before King Minos' daughter, Ariadne, falls in love with him. Ariadne wants to help Theseus, so she is in the labyrinth as well, and she uses thread to help Theseus not only kill the Minotaur, but then escape. So it's kind of a nice little.
Thread kill a Minotaur.
Huh?
How does thread
The
kill a
thread,
Minotaur?
obviously the thread isn't for that. Like the thread, we'll talk about it. Yeah, it's for him to find his way out as like.
How does it help kill a Minotaur?
I don't know. Y'all calm down, like Connor. You need to raise your hand more, and other people just need to chill. But anyway, this is something we've seen. Like different cartoons probably do their homage of the Minotaur situation, right? So we could do a reception Monday about Theseus or this Minotaur episode showing up in pop culture. But this is one of the most heavily referenced episodes that we find in mythology. Along with Perseus and Medusa and some of the Hercules stuff, this is like the best known. Even if you don't know it, you know like something about the Minotaur episode. And for a lot of people, it's that the thread is the thing that he uses to venture deep into the labyrinth, and then he can kind of like find his way back, similar to Hansel and Gretel with the jelly beans. Aiden? I don't think the thread was that powerful. I think he just uses a good old handy sword. Yeah. So anyway, yes.
He's not allowed to bring weapons in. He pulls the horn off the Minotaur and uses the horn to stab them.
Oh, that's cool. I've never heard that. Ella says he's not allowed to bring swords in, which makes sense. Why would he be? So he take this version of him doesn't have a horn, but he usually has a horn. This is kind of small. Those almost look like crazy ears.
Oh, plus that's a centaur.
Yeah, this is a straight up centaur. Anyway, it comes up when you Google Theseus. But yeah, okay, so I like that. I need to find a reference for that horn thing, but I believe it. Ella knows her myths better than me. I don't know why. I'm like bad at knowing the all little details of myths. Yes. Oh, yeah, from his dad. So I don't know. I guess he, according to Ella, he couldn't bring that dagger in to this. The dagger he gets from his dad. So I don't know if he has like a magical item. Like Perseus gets the magical shoes and a sword from gods. But Theseus, it's kind of like he's working with Ariadne. Ariadne is the one who really saves the day. But poor Ariadne here, she gets ditched soon after this. They escape Crete after slaying her freakish, monstrous half-brother. But then he just leaves her on an island where she might get scooped up by Dionysus. So it's not one of those situations. Like, again, I think Greek myths, they needed more, like, Disney animated movie writers around.
How are they gonna
No.
But like, this is the perfect, like, it's like a damsel in a knight in shining armor situation where they're supposed to end up together and like be a power couple in Greek mythology. But just like Jason and Medea, that doesn't end up happening. When we talk about Jason, we'll talk about how when he first meets Medea, she helps him get this golden fleece from her father, and she even goes as far as to kill her brother just to help Jason get away. from all of this. But then they end up like not working out long term. So just like Jason and Medea don't end up being a power couple, neither do poor Theseus and Ariadne. I don't know what it's all about. Carson?
Here's a tip for Disney movies. The real villain isn't gonna be the villain. It's always gonna be somebody that helps you.
Okay.
Keep that in mind every time you watch a new Disney movie.
I like good twists. Theseus does show up in some other
all the time.
Theseus shows up in some other myths, but this is the main one, obviously. Like, he has more going on with, like, when he takes on the Marathonian Bull, there's other labors that he performs. But he ends up in the underworld trying to kidnap Helen and Persephone as potential wives, and he gets trapped there until Heracles happens to be passing through, and so that he can, like, save Theseus, right? Nathan and Hayden, who are being the only disruptive people in here right now. And then his final myths kind of have to do with him just being this well-regarded Athenian hero. He leaves his ship in the harbor of Athens, where it stays for apparently centuries, and that'll lead us to this weird philosophical quandary we'll talk about now. And that is the ship of Theseus paradox, which is a philosophical concept that first comes up because of Plato. This is something Plato talks about. This Greek philosopher from like 2,500 years ago has this, it's really just a thought experiment about this ship that apparently was in the actual harbor of Athens for a long time. Now it gets like, this is a mythological figure, right? So like it wasn't really an actual Theseus, but there might have been a dude named Theseus, because this is such a long-standing thing for the people in Athens that it seems like there's something there, even if there's no Minotaur and all of this stuff. But basically, the paradox or the thought experiment is that over time, Theseus' ship was sitting in this harbor, and that like every once in a while, people would notice like, oh, this one plank got kind of moldy or it's kind of rotting. We need to replace that one plank of the ship, and they would do that. But if this keeps happening over centuries, then the question is, and it might be one of those kind of questions that make you roll your eyes. Like, well, that's not that profound. I don't see why that's such a important thing to think about. Is it still the same ship if year after year you're swapping out the planks over time? And then eventually, because it's kind of a second part of the question, once all the planks have been replaced, is it still the same ship?
Yes.
So I want to ask you guys, give you guys the floor a little bit. Who wants to answer these? Hands up. Because you could say like, oh, if you just change out a few planks here and there, that's still the same ship. But once they've all been replaced, no. But then you need to take it further. Explain why you feel that way and what constitutes, like, when does it stop being the ship of Theseus? And so it's a thought experiment that people apply to all sorts of things. It's not just about shipbuilding and ships. It's about anything, the nature of anything. I can't think of any other good examples, but it's because this is already a pretty good example. Connor?
Well, I mean, like, if you take one plank off of it, you fix it. I mean, it would not still be the same ship. But if you, like, take all the planks, I mean, if you, like, take all of the skin off a human, is it still a human?
Maybe. So you're saying some of the individual planks being replaced, that doesn't make it not the ship?
But I feel like it'd still be the same ship if it was, because, like, I mean, like, you replace all the planks, but it's still the same ship that the person used. It's just, like...
So what? So I'll come back to you. But if the planks aren't the thing that make it Theseus' ship or not Theseus' ship, then what makes it Theseus' ship? I'll come back to
Are you
you.
like saying like if you have a microphone but you replace the top of it, is it still the same microphone? But then if you like replace the entire microphone, is it still the same microphone?
Kind of. You can apply this to anything,
Okay,
but we don't really need a
question number
metaphor.
one, is still the same shape for question number two, probably no.
This is already a metaphor, so we don't necessarily need other metaphors with which to understand it. Ella, what do you think?
I think it's still the same ship even if all the planks have been replaced, because they don't replace like the mast or like the rest. They just replace the planks, so the rest of it is still the same ship.
Okay, so things like masts and sails could remain the same. But yeah, I think the interesting thing is like if you say yes, individual planks are not going to change the ship, but if you change every plank, it does. Then that is interesting because it's like, well, then at what point between these two things has it become this different ship? And again, if the planks isn't the thing making it Theseus' ship, what makes it Theseus' ship?
Oh my God.
Kylie?
I think that what makes Theseus is Mario's memory of it, And if you think of it as a ship, clearly it's not.
Uh,
So you just gotta modify it.
So it's about the ownership and the fact that we like know who it belongs to. Yeah, and it probably would have had like a big, I don't know, like a sign or something like this is the ship of Theseus, the ancient Athenian hero from 400 years ago. We've been preserving his ship for a really long time. Because even though he had sort of divine blood, he eventually did die, I guess, or get deified. Aiden?
What are the minimum parts required?
That's yeah. See, that's the kind of like this one idea. It leads you to a whole bunch of other questions. It's like, well, then what is a ship, right? Like a ship, it's like a functional construction that allows them to travel over water. Like that's one of the most minimal definitions, Grace, that I can think of to like explain what a ship is. But even that's probably more than what a ship is. Like a ship could probably just be a single plank of wood, and like I don't know, like that's it.
Anything that you can ride on that floats in water.
It probably needs to be functional. So it's like a functional thing. But that function lies beyond just the planks. It's not just the planks, right, Carson?
So technically, it would still be quote unquote Theseus's ship because they're basically refining it or refurbishing it, whatever you want to call it. It's not really it's not really changing the whole ship. But also, Theseus really hasn't touched any of the new planks. So it's kind of a well, yes, but actually no.
Okay, so you're kind of saying it's like both. It's like both the same ship and not at the same time. Because Theseus himself doesn't have a relationship with the new materials used. That's kind of interesting. If you think of like, I don't know anything about like sewing a dress. I know like nothing about it. But yeah, I guess the idea is that like you have measurements and fabric suggestions, and that's probably a word for it when you're in the business of like. Does anybody know what's the word? A seamstress, if you're a seamstress. And like, this is a dress. You use this kind of material. These are the measurements for it. And then you can make that dress a whole bunch of times. And it's like, the dress themselves, like, there's something beyond that. And that's the plan that the seamstress has for the measurements and the fabric. You can also apply it to like a culinary thing. You can be like, oh, this is how we make grandma's cake. This is her recipe for a cake. And it's not like one cake is like, this is grandma's cake. It's like, no. Well, so yeah, I don't know. Like, was there a set?
Like, what makes this new ship? That Theseus touched it? That it looks the same?
Well, yeah. So maybe just because he used it, and then you go back and you'd be like, well, okay, what other ships were made that were just like this? Because there are probably other ships made just like this. But how were they made? Do we have whatever a seamstress version, like whatever the naval version of a seamstress is? If they have like instructions for how to build a ship, that might be Theseus' ship, not the actual collection of wood and all these parts. But anyway, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes I think it's not interesting. What? You think it's the same ship?
Yeah, because like, yeah. Okay, so if somebody lost their leg and they got like a big leg, they'd be the same person.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think that's interesting. I have a little trouble applying that to this because it's like a ship. Because a leg is a part of a person, but a ship it's like a whole thing. So I don't know. It just depends on whatever part they're talking about that gets replaced. If y'all think we looked at a replica of the Parthenon in Nashville, right? And as far as I know, it's like exactly accurate as to the size and the scale of the Parthenon. But of course, it has nothing in common with the original. Right. Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Like, it probably not. It's a copy. I think we think of it as a copy. Right. So like, if you had a ship in a harbor of Athens and you knew that every plank had been replaced, that's probably how you think of it. You're like, it's a replica. Like that's the word you would use. You wouldn't quite say like it is the ship, but you could say like it's a perfectly faithful replica. Any other thoughts? Caden, I'm mad at Caden right now. Any other thoughts on this before we move on? Carson? We'll eventually have philosophy, I think, in the 11th or 12th grade. So if you like these kind of questions that like don't actually have a technical exact right answer, then take philosophy as soon as you have the option to.
Is there a way to fail that?
Huh?
Is there a way to fail philosophy?
Well, I mean, yeah, probably. Because sometimes you're like talking about philosophers and you're getting like factual information like this person was born then. But when you're actually discussing philosophy, there truly are like not right answers. Like that's why people like philosophy, I think. It's because it's a discussion-based thing. It's not like Like, I'm not gonna flip the slide and be like, it turns out, yes, it is Theseus' ship the whole time. It never changes. Like, no, there's no answer.
Well,
Like,
I feel like it has to have like a physical.
no, I don't think that's a good question. I don't think he does, but I actually need to look into that to make sure. But I'm pretty sure he's presenting it because there isn't a right answer.
Okay, so-
I should look into that. What?
Technically, if all the planks will be replaced, and it would still be Theseus' ship, it technically wouldn't be Theseus' ship because, like I said, he never even touched the new planks.
So,
And since the whole ship was just rebuilt, it's not his.
so you think he has to have contact with it? I think that's kind of fair. That's kind of fair that he has to be like around. All right, guys, that's basically Theseus. Thank you to Ella for helping me fill in some of the holes in my myth recap. But isn't this a weird medieval version of what the labyrinth would look like? I never think of it as being open air like this, but maybe it was, and it was still somehow hidden. I don't think we need to go over these. John, how do you say two in Latin? Yeah. Because of the D. Huh? You're close. Duo. Duo is two, whereas secundus is second. Shh. Danny or Ava, how do you say four? Yeah, quatuor or quartus aum. Remember, guys, we have cardinal versus ordinal. That Nathan and Katie are not sitting in front of Caitlin again. Ridiculous. Quinque 5, quintus is fifth, and they're sixth and sextus. What is 7? Anyone out loud? Septem. I think 7 through 10 get easy because of the month. September. It's not the 7th month. It's the 9th, but I've talked about this. Then we have octo, octavus, octava, octavum, novem, nonus, nona, nonum, decim, decimus. And 11 through 20 are pretty easy, with these being maybe the only tricky ones, these last 3. All right, guys. I'm going to pass this out tomorrow, but this is a story about Theseus. Let's look at the first few sentences without anything in front of us. Richard needs to stop talking. Guys, do not talk over me. You'll notice I split my mask down because when people are talking over me, I feel like I have this weird reaction. I'm like, it's because I'm not able to like talk uninhibited. That doesn't even make sense though. Why would me being slightly muffled make it to where you're like, oh, I need to talk over this teacher? She like fully talk over him. Remember, guys, I am fully vaccinated. Who can read the first sentence? I'll pass this out tomorrow, but let's just look at the first 2 sentences before the bell without a copy in front of us. Thank you, Aiden. Good, Rex Aegeus. Yeah, so we have some words. Athena, Athenarum, literally means Athens. And then Aegeus here is the dad of Theseus. Guys, whoever's water bottle this is, do not leave it in my classroom. It is truly disgusting and upsetting the amount of water bottles I see left on the floor. Okay? If that's how you treat your water bottles, stop getting water bottles. Don't ask your parents for them. You are polluting the entire planet by being wasteful. Stop doing it. Okay, anyway, what do you think the subject of this sentence is? Ava? Good, yeah. So whatever's going on, something about Athens is up here. But that's not the nominative of Athenae, which would be Athens if it was just the subject of the sentence. Theseus, though, and that's how we say his name as English speakers. That's probably the nominative version of his name. So yeah, he's the subject of this sentence. His verb is wildly in front of him. So who wants to put these first 3 words together? Close, but you're overcomplicating. It's not that he wanted to, but just that I know Ava's close. Ella?
He did. He lived in Athens.
Yeah, Theseus lived in Athens. That's all it is. So Theseus lived in Athens. It seems completely backwards to what we expect as English speakers, but we know that that's pretty normal, actually. But it's not just Theseus. It's Theseus and Aias Quae, Aias Pater, and his dad, the king, just Aegeus. Yeah. Good. In Athens of Theseus and his dad, King Aegeus. So this is me trying to like kind of mimic the Latin word order. It sounds a little weird, but it's technically fun. All right, that's true. We know that's true about him. Who can read number 2 and then tell me one thing about it, Carson?
Hello, tempores, seaways, regi, insoi, cretai, buenas, daban.
Good. First off, I want to warn you guys. This is probably the last thing we do with the bell. This horrible, weird thing where do from do dare to give plus poina. It's not to give a punishment. It's what you would think it is literally. It's to pay a penalty. So that's happening. Heads up on that. But what's my subject here? The subject here is a little weird. Grace, Nelius, Evan, Richard, whatever the subject is. The subject was the third word in this sentence. Where is it here? Huh? Reggie?
I think it was seaways.
Yeah, I think it actually might be keyways. Reggie is a good guess, but I think actually keyways means, what does that mean, anyone?
That would be
Citizens.
citizen.
What do we do with illo tempora, though?
That time.
So just that time?
Or that time or those times.
But can we, in that time? In's okay. What's a little bit, no, a little better than during? We don't actually want to use during.
Within that time.
Within's okay. And it's like technically correct. But, Natalie? Oh, my bad. What's that like that for emails? You do the A with a circle around it? Yeah. I think at might be a little better. And I'm glad some people recognize LO as that. So this is the ablative of time when, where all by itself, it literally just means that time. But you want, it's like, how do we connect it to the sentence in a way that makes sense? And at is ideal. Like, and it's like, okay. All right, we'll finish this tomorrow. Homework isn't due till Thursday, guys. Homework's in the textbook. It's due Thursday.